So, this chapter kind of confused me because I was like, everything that I thought was true was proved distrue. So, like, you think that higher taxes are like, it kind of stinks that you have to pay more individually, but it's going to be good for the greater good. And then you're like, that's not true. My life is a lie. So, that's kind of what I picked up reading this.
Kaylin?
Lower marginal income tax rates create an incentive for people to work more and harder because the rewards of doing so are greater.
Yeah. Anyway. Anthony?
I didn't even catch that. Can you repeat it? Use your own words and slow down. Don't read. Just use your own words. It.
Okay, let me read it. Okay, the lower the marginal tax rates is going to create an incentive for people to work harder and more
Lower the marginal in.
because the rewards are greater.
That's what the book says, at least.
Okay.
Because they were talking about how, like, when the income tax was really high, people didn't want to go to work as much.
Yeah, like the more hours you get, the higher the taxes they take on.
Taxes affect everyone in an equal sense, kind of where if you have a higher luxury tax, then even though the rich have a lot of money, they still aren't going to want to spend all their money.
Yeah. That was surprising.
I was really surprised about that.
Yeah.
It was the first time I got the whole elasticity of supply and demand. We've been talking about it, but how and the different variables that can affect. So we think of supply is this solid rule that is always gonna happen, but there's all these variables. So like it that make it change that affect it. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I learned, but I ain't too terribly surprised that like in Ireland, I do believe they said it was, before they did away with welfare, that people who were on welfare made more money than they would have if they went out to work.
That's very true. A lot of people that's true for. So this chapter mainly talks about the disincentives of higher taxes, but would anybody know any pros of higher taxes? It's a hard one because all they talk about is
Possibly money for the government.
see, but they prove that there really isn't in making any more money for higher ones. Do you want to do the pros and cons? So some people just list the cons, and if you think of a pro, then you get brownie points because we have yet to think of one.
And there is actually a difference between two different taxes. One is income tax, the other one is the sales tax.
Yeah.
So these two taxes is gonna have different impact on consumers and producers' behavior. So when we talk about tax, really, we want to differentiate which tax we're talking about because it's gonna have different impact.
So what are the cons of a higher income tax?
People will work less, so there's less work getting done and less profits.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So, I think of something. You have
When the tax rates are higher, it tends to yield less money.
Yeah.
Okay, I might be like horribly wrong on this, but I thought that you can see if I'm right. Where the standard of living, would it go down since the people have less money available to them?
Well, think about what the purpose of tax.
It's a redistribution of the wealth.
Exactly. So the government is going to use tax to build the public good. I mean, at least that's what they claim to do. Okay. And what is public good? Free public transportation, okay, and the park, security of the town, the police station is supported by the government. Okay, so if we're talking about standard living, all those things should be included in standard living. I live in an area where it's beautiful forest and very, very clean air, clean water, and to me, that's very important. Okay, so not just the money, the income, which matters. If really you want to make a lot of money right now, you go to China. That's where the gold is. But I choose to work here, and because, there is a, better natural environment here. So you raised a good question. So what is really good standard living, So to me, from my point of view, is it has to include a lot of different things, not only income, yeah.
So everybody read about the luxury tax and how even though they made a luxury tax on really expensive things, the rich turned around and they were like, even though we're rich, we don't want to spend more money than we already were. So do you guys think that that is a really realistic view of how everybody is, even the poor through the rich? Because they kept on mentioning the rich, there was a big conception that they just spent money. I mean, did anybody else feel like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I didn't know because we both kind of did it at the same time, so I was like,
You're next, and then.
well, it's like, working class people, poor people, they don't want to spend their money because they don't have as much of it, while rich people don't want to spend a lot of their money because then they won't be rich.
Yeah.
Then they won't be able to
See,
do
I
things.
figured that the rich were gonna be stingy. I didn't think that they would buy stuff even and not think about the luxury tax. I thought that they would be stingy and be like, I don't want to spend my money.
I was thinking, because regardless of what class you're in, money is still money. So when they were referring to the rich as if they're referring to them as if they were this whole other group.
Yeah.
They're still people and it's still money. So when it boils down to it, you don't want to spend more money than you have to.
Yeah, and I was thinking about how luxury items are something that is going to be really affected by that elasticity because they're easy to give up or they're easy to find a way around. Whereas food items that, if we talked about this before, food items that you're going to buy whether the price goes up or not. You're just
Yeah,
you're gonna buy it.
gas,
Salt and
and
pepper, I think we
food.
used before. No matter how much it costs, you're still going to buy it. Whereas a boat is not really that.
Yeah.
They might go and spend their money on something else. They can give up that luxury or find a way around it. It's something that's really deeply affected.
Yeah.
Can I just add something on that? As far as the last thing you tacked onto the cons, the standard of living in the government support, ain't that technically supposed to be a pro because it's supposed to help out that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to help out, and that stuff like that's supposed to increase.
It's supposed to, but it's proven that it doesn't. It says in the text that whenever they raised the taxes, they thought they were going to get extreme revenue off of it, but they really didn't. So we're thinking that they expect it to happen, but it just doesn't. So we're thinking of it as a con, if that makes sense. So we read about Ireland and how the people that were on welfare don't want to go back to work because they get hit with 120% tax from losing their benefits and having to pay income tax. So what is a way that we could get people in America not to, a lot of people in America are the same way. They don't want to get off of their benefits and go back to work. What is a way that America could do the same thing and get the same results of having people to get off welfare and go back to work?
Maybe, you know how now on welfare they have, you have to apply to so many jobs and stay on welfare. Actually enforce it more. Some people can just go to, people they know and get them to sign the paper and be like, yeah, I came here. But maybe make it more regulations on it.
So you're saying have whenever you're on welfare, you have to have a steady search for a job. You can't just relax every day and not do anything. Anybody else?
Along with that, when you do apply for jobs and stuff, you often have to go to interviews, and there are people that will completely throw the interview, just be disrespectful so that they won't get the job and they'll stay on welfare.
Yeah.
Yes.
You.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but there needs to be an incentive, not to just apply to a job, but some kind of reward, like they did in Ireland, that if you have a job, then you are making money, you're not having, they said they had like it was a ridiculous pay cut when they actually got a job because they weren't.
Yeah, 120% tax cut.
And I think another thing is it kind of makes you rethink how much welfare is and how much people are getting when like you apply for a low paying job that will still be able to sustain your family. Maybe you have to get 2 or whatever. And I'm a people's person, and I everyone should be covered, and poverty shouldn't exist, but that's not the real world, unfortunately. But I think that like when you realize, okay, the people in welfare don't want to give it up because of the the decrease in money they're about to get. Maybe instead of looking at, okay, this is what they're going to, maybe the welfare needs to be distributed a little differently.
Yeah.
If the reason why they don't want to get a job is because of the lack of money that they're going to receive. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. Right.
So like, you're saying that like if maybe they decrease the amount of welfare they're getting, maybe that would be an incentive to go out and get a job.
Right, and if they distribute that money, because like there's people that can take advantage of welfare, and then there's those that like need more welfare because they're doing what they're supposed to. So maybe like
there are people with jobs on welfare, so you're completely right. Like they're like working and still don't have enough to feed their kids, but then there are people who are completely dependent upon it.
So I think maybe like an incentive could be like if you have a job, like make it like break it up, because like if there's a mom and dad who have 6 kids and they both have jobs but they still need help, well then you get some welfare, but they're gonna get a little more versus the guy who's just sitting over here on the couch and doesn't have a job.
And I was also thinking like make it lower each month so they're aware that they need to get a job and be independent, and also like not hit them with the 120% marginal tax rate at one time.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you do like decide, okay, like you're getting paid well enough, but it's the taxes that are really like taking your income out and really making you suffer, well then the obvious answer is just decrease taxes. But then you've got multiple effects that occur with that. But because of like, I think that there should be like a tax decrease for those that are trying to get out of the welfare system. So like, people are gonna be like, well, that's not fair kind of thing. But like, if you're trying to get out of the welfare system, the amount of money that they're about to give up and put back into circulation and, provide jobs and do whatever is going to be more significant than, if you say, okay, we're gonna take off some of that tax decrease until you get back on your feet, until you, have a stable job and a living conditions and stuff like that.
So, like, in the book, it says that politicians and regular people think that laborers don't react to and after pay income tax, which means that they would work no matter what their income tax was. They work the same all year long, every day like they're supposed to. And that would mean that the supply of labor would be a vertical line. But can you help me on this? Because whenever I read upward slope, with people not being steady, I didn't really understand that. So you guys have to help me with the supply and demand, because obviously there are going to be some people that still go to work, but then there are going to be some people that don't need to work as much as others. So if they get a higher tax, they're probably not going to work as much. So the line wouldn't be vertical, would it?
It should be upward slope.
Upward slope?
Yeah.
So, okay. I don't know how to, oh god. This is the worst part of this chapter in my opinion. So, when you do quantity and demand, the supply
should, have the upward slope, right?
So what would be the demand though?
What would be the demand?
Like, this is hard for me.
So speaking in terms of the slope,
Let's
is
label it. Let's label it. Okay, so what is the label on the vertical axis?
This is Q, right?
No.
Or P.
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 What does that mean, the P?
Price.
Price.
Price of what?
so would that be like
Price of
payment?
price of the
Would that be payment
what market
after?
we're talking about?
Would that be payment after the
We're
payment?
talking about labor market. So what's the price? Is that income?
Would that be
Wage.
Yeah.
Wage
Wage.
rate. Wage rate. So
Before
P-
the taxes or after?
It should be after.
Okay.
It should be after. Price of labor. That means price of labor, so it's wage rate, the P.
Yeah.
And Q here represent, how many worker really work, right? Q there, quantity. So supply curve there represent how many people would like to work.
Mhm.
Okay, really the quantity there actually represent number of hours, right? At a different wage rate, when you have a higher wage rate, people tend to work more. And when you have a lower wage rate, people probably tend to work less. But I'm going to give you example here, okay? And some of you work on campus, right? Okay, how much you make? $8 per hour? Right? 7?
I don't work on campus.
Okay, so anybody work on campus?
You work on campus?
Okay, so suppose you work, right now $8 per hour. You work about like 20 hours per week, okay? And then you work for 2 months. Your performance is great, so they decide to increase your wage rate to, let's say, $15 per hour. So what you gonna do?
Work more.
You're gonna work.
Work more.
You're gonna work more. You're probably thinking, I'm gonna work from 20 and increase my number of hours to 25 to 30, right? Okay. So 2 months later, your work performance is really, and over the top. So they decide to give you another raise. So now you're gonna make $20 per hour. Now what's going to do?
Well, wouldn't you say that you wouldn't need to work as much to make as much as you were?
I want to hear them respond.
That's what I'm saying.
$20 per hour right now. Just imagine you in that situation.
There's only
Do not think about what the right answer or wrong answer. No, imagine you are already in that situation. Before you make $8 per hour, now you're making $20 per hour.
personally.
You work more.
Yeah.
Let's say you probably want to work from $30 to $35 per hour now, okay? And 2 months later, now I guess the boss really likes you. They're going to increase the wage to $30 per
Does this
hour.
person go to school?
What you gonna do?
Continue working more.
Now you're gonna work 40 hours per week, okay? At $30 per hour, you're gonna work 40 hours a week, okay? So now I'm gonna make it extreme. So a half a year later, 6 months later, they're going to increase your wage to $50 per hour. I mean, really imagine you're in that situation, $50 per hour. Now what
I
you
was
gonna
making
Who
$50
needs
an
college?
hour.
I would quit college and
do?
just
Now what you gonna do?
work
College
every
pointless.
day, all day.
Sarah, what's you gonna
Drop out.
I'm gonna work even more.
do? 40 hours? You're gonna work for all?
Well, I don't know if I'm already working 40 hours.
40
I
hours.
was
I
never
work
had
8
a
hours a
situation
day.
where
I wouldn't work more because you'd be making the
Pardon?
same.
You're gonna work less.
Yeah, because you're making
yeah.
more money.
But
No, go ahead.
but I mean, I thought like when you make more money, they still take more taxes out. So basically,
Well, there's no tax.
There's no
Just,
We're not
taxes.
thinking
I'm oversimplifying the story. Okay,
I'm gonna work more.
Okay. So somebody says now I want to work less. I'm going to reduce the number of hours to 30, and $50 per hour, I still make very good money every week, right? Now I can have some free time. I can study, right?
That's what-
And if you give me $100 per hour, I probably going to just work 20 hours. So the reason I'm giving you this story sounds not realistic, but the point is this.
It's more of a thought.
Okay, in the labor market, this is the price of labor. I'm just going to say this is the wage rate. And this is quantity, number of workers. And there is a pattern. In general, there's a pattern. At the beginning, and when the wage rate increases, you want to work more. So when the wage rate is very, very low, and as wage rate goes up, and you would like to work more, okay? So it increases. But after to reach a certain point, when the wage rate is really, really high, you don't need to work very much to make a good living. So your number of hours has to decrease a little bit. Okay. So, this is not true for everyone, but in general, for majority of people, it follows this trend. So when it's the beginning, labor supply has upward slope, but when it reaches a really, really high point, and you're going to work less. Okay. And there's two stages here. Right? The first stage, what we call the substitution effect. Substitution effect means that I'm going to substitute the leisure with working. I'm going to substitute leisure with working. I want to work more because I'm going to make more money. Okay? And the second stage is income effect. What income effect? Your income is high enough, and that's become a dominant factor, and now you want to take more time off. You want to enjoy your leisure. Because two things in your life will give you satisfaction. Okay? One is your income, which you can use to consume. The second is leisure. Okay? Both are very, very important. At a certain point, you're going to trade out one with the other. Okay? So in general, that's what the labor supply looks like.
I have one question.
Sure.
When I look at that though, the upward and then like the kind of plateau, when I see that,
Goes down a little bit actually.
yeah, going down a little bit. When I look at it, it seems to me that I would interpret that as working less because the price is decreasing.
Hold on. Why nobody caught my mistake here? Oh, there's a mistake
Good
here.
job.
Good job. Okay. So the first stage is this is correct. So as your wage rate, the quantity, the number of hours, is increased, right? The next stage goes this way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
See, that's why I was confused. I didn't know
I can be wrong, don't
What are you talking about?
worry. That's why I was like, I don't know what that would do.
Substitution effect, and this is the income effect. Okay. All right. Okay. Now it's back.
Thank you. So this is kind of a different note, but it's discussion question 4. This is my favorite, you guys. And it says, explain how the incentive effects of each of the following hypothetical taxes would cause people to change their behavior. Be sure to explain what people are likely to do less of and what they are likely to do more of in response to each tax. So the taxes are A, $1 million per story tax on all office buildings more than 2 stories tall. B, a $2,000 per car tax on all red and only red cars. And C, $100 per book tax on all new college textbooks. This is my favorite.
So we do it one by one?
Can you repeat
Yeah.
the first part of the question, like what we're thinking of what would happen?
Yeah, it says to explain what you would do, like what would the effect be if these were in effect, like if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Anybody? Blake?
So, I'm gonna make sure that I don't have an office building more than 2 stories tall, because, that would put me in bankrupt, because I wouldn't be, the chance you're making actually $1 million is probably very slim, so if you have to pay that tax,
But what about Trump?
go well.
He needs.
Wait, is this like us, or like?
It's his people. It says
Right, it
people
says
in
people,
general, but you
so
have to
like-
think of like.
Right, but okay, so not, the majority of people are not Donald Trump. So the majority of people are not making $1 million like, every other week, whatever. So, most people would just say, okay, just make like if you're gonna make an office building, make it one story and just have a bigger surface.
So what would that do to businesses? Would there be more businesses because less people would have those big, huge?
Plus space.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there would be more.
Yeah, there would be like if you had to build and only people did 2-story buildings, then you'd probably build more buildings, but they would only be 2 stories. So there would be some type of effect.
Yeah, I think you'd have to think, if you were a wealthy person, you'd have to think about how much more am I gonna spend on real estate, like land, paying for land, if I don't have the floor space in this smaller building, And so you have to think about, is $1 million per story worth it to not have to buy more land? Because I need this office space or floor space or whatever.
So with this would be like kind of a luxury tax, because you're like, if you're gonna be wealthy enough and you're gonna be making millions of dollars, that this, $1 million just won't affect you that much. So go ahead and build up, because you're gonna be helping other people, while normal middle class Americans are gonna be like, yeah, I'm just gonna make smaller buildings or, a wider base or for more surface. So basically, this would be like a luxury tax.
I chose this one because I really like C, because the new textbooks ordeal is a really big, like most schools are missing textbooks because they don't have the money to buy new ones, and I buy used textbooks. I don't know about you guys. So, what does everyone think about that?
Yes, together. So we have to one person buy a book and we all split the cost.
I think there'd be a lot more black market book,
Yeah.
like,
There would be a site that we could get on illegally and
Yeah.
download our textbooks like music.
And also, I think there'd be a lot of people that's dropping out of college. Because you simply could not afford the books.
So I think the main point of this question was to show that higher taxes, it doesn't just affect the rich like everyone thinks. It affects normal people like me and you.
And there's another thing that the question for trying to tell you. In addition to the tax, what else this question for trying to tell you?
Like an opportunity cost. There's like an opportunity. There's like, if you're not gonna do that, like what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna put your money into?
In a way like that.
Right.
So when something is more expensive, what is consumers' tendency? They're trying to find a
Alternative.
substitute,
Yes.
alternative. If there is substitute, definitely consumer is going to switch to that. Okay? And also there's another thing that's also relevant is the elasticity. Okay, we talk about that part in a little bit. So Sarah just mentioned elasticity. Okay, elasticity measures, how sensitive people respond to the change of the price. Okay? And we talk about the luxury goods have inelastic or elastic demand. Inelastic or elastic. If it's elastic, it means people very sensitive to the change of price. If it's inelastic, that people are not sensitive to the change of the price. So what about luxury? Is it elastic?
It's elastic.
It is elastic. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you, what kind of goods tend to have elastic demand?
Yes,
Textbooks.
yes.
Gas, okay, that can happen, but I will tell you in 1970 when the gas price was really high at the beginning, people just still driving. They did not do the carpooling and they did not do anything. They just keep driving. And some people just enjoy driving, so they're not going to cut down the gas consumption much. But over time, what happened in 1970, after 5-6 years, people start carpooling using public transportation.
So over time, the demand, the consumer's behavior will change. But so gas, this good here, it can has elastic or inelastic demand, depends on the individual. Okay. What else? What other goods tends to have elastic demand?
Property taxes.
And here we talk about real goods or services.
Name brand items like clothes.
Okay, the expensive clothes, right? We don't have to have them. Okay.
Substitute for, right? You
Hmm?
said like new clothes or expensive clothes you could substitute for them.
With cheaper ones,
Right.
right? Yeah. What else?
Expensive cars too.
That's all considered as luxury goods. But in addition to luxury goods, what else have elastic demand? Food?
Healthy food.
Food is still considered, I would think, relatively low price compared with, because you cannot do without food. So,
But that's like
A
saying.
lot of people, because like they say healthy foods are more expensive, like getting your
yeah. So it can be elastic for some people.
Right.
Yeah. But what are the goods that definitely have elastic demand? Definitely, for sure.
Cars?
Fast food?
Travel?
Travel. Travel can be expensive if you have to fly, right? When you have money, you do it. When you don't do it. What about the medicine like insulin for diabetes? Diabetes people, if they depend on insulin, they have to have it, right? So drugs, the medicines have elastic demand. Okay. What about I'm going to ask you this kind of controversial question. What about beer? Has elastic or inelastic demand?
I think that's inelastic, because regardless of the price, people are still gonna go get it.
You think it's elastic?
I think it could be elastic because like
Just tell me, is it elastic for you or not?
Oh, it's elastic. Yeah. It's elastic. Definitely.
Okay, so it really for that good, it depends on the individual. For some, probably inelastic. For others, probably is elastic. Right. What do you think about the football game or basketball game? Those kind of
Those
goods.
are
Elastic?
elastic. Like entertainment.
Yeah, they consider it elastic.
Well, that's why I said fast food, because some people buy it and some people don't.
Well, is it because of price?
Could be. I mean, if
People
McDonald's jacked a Big Mac up to like $9, then
Is it $9?
I know
No,
it's not. I'm
if-
just saying if they did.
Well, if it goes up to $9, I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna buy because they can go to a restaurant, get a better burger, with the same price.
Like something that's elastic could be eating at nicer restaurants,
Yeah.
depending on.
Yeah, that's right. What else? What kind of goods have inelastic? We talk about salt and pepper, water, eggs, milk, bread. Those kind of things that you need, on a daily basis, right? Okay, so those kind of things. Usually, the cheaper goods, the relatively low price goods, tend to have inelastic demand than the more higher priced goods.
So in Ireland, they offered, well, first of all, let's just say that Ireland has lower taxes than us by far, but they offered write-offs and tax breaks for research and development. Do any of you guys have any ideas that we could do as Americans as write-offs that would help us get to where Ireland was? I mean, they had incredible tax revenue and their income tax was lower than ours.
So like, if we did like, if you're gonna devote your company to like finding new natural resources or like advancing natural resources, then we'll decrease such and such taxes for you.
Yeah.
So to speak.
I think if we give tax breaks to small businesses, more tax breaks to small businesses, because small businesses have a really hard time. My parents own a small business, and their taxes are really heavy. And so my dad ended up, a while ago, he ended up having to go find another job because he couldn't sustain his business because of the taxes. And so I think you could encourage more businesses, more small businesses, and more innovation, and more people to be entrepreneurs if they weren't burdened by this heavy tax rate when they're starting out.
I'll tell you this, I have a friend that owns a small business, dry cleaning business. That's considered a small business, right? In China. I just learned from him. There's no tax for small business in China. There's no tax, 0 tax. Okay, so that tells you why, it's been booming. Small business has been booming in China. Not a lot of incentives.
How do they get away without, like, when you say no tax, does that mean that they don't have to pay taxes on the money? But yeah, so the money they earn is just solely profit. They don't have to tax it. That would be amazing.
Yeah, but it's just small size the business.
Yeah.
It would be sort of like our personal taxes, how, bigger, like more income, more tax. But it would be for businesses, and it would encourage more businesses.
So is that what it's like in China? Like if you have a small business just starting out, there's no taxes, but like the bigger you get, or is it just no taxes overall?
There must be a threshold. I do not know where the threshold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do not
So
know.
there's regulations to make
Yes.
sure that you
Yeah.
can go from a small business to a
Sure.
boom.
Yeah, probably number of people, employed.
Yeah. Okay.
But I want to ask you guys a question. So the success in Ireland, is marvelous. But do you think we can replicate that success here in the United States at the current time?
I think we're too far gone.
And why? I think that's something interesting to discuss.
I think we just have at this point in time, we have way too much debt. So we're trying to backtrack and figure out ways to save money. And all these things are they would be good ideas if we didn't have so much debt. Because in the long run they would be good. But to do it now would just put too much strain on the country right now.
I also think that the country's spending priorities are a little bit too skewed. And it kind of goes along with the debt because we're in debt because of our issues with priorities. So whereas especially in European countries, I know that they spend way more money on education. So now they have this educated workforce that can go out and be innovative and have the knowledge to have small businesses and stuff like that. So I think at this moment in time, with the amount of debt and the fact that our priorities are not exactly where they should be, I don't think we can.
So how many people in here think that we should tax higher tax brackets more than we tax the lower, taxing the rich, basically? Does anybody agree with that?
That we should or that we can't?
That we should.
Because there's such a significant increase the majority of our population is middle class. You would hear a lot of people, just tax the higher class, they can deal with it. But when you think about it, we're supposed to live in a very equal, America's supposed to be the land of equal opportunity, and so it's a difficult situation because you need money. So it's the people that are getting rich are doing things right. Not to say that the middle class people aren't, but they found a way to get rich, and they're whatever they're doing with their money is kind of their business. So do you tax them, or do you make more of an equal tax that everyone can pay? Because then you're okay, everyone can pay this tax, and it'll kind of amount up rather than the.
I think the equal pay though would make it would have to be really low for the super poor, and then the rich would be
this is just right,
yeah.
Exactly, which makes it real difficult.
And that's a big debate right now with the election.
So Blaine was talking about actually the issue of equity. right? Fairness, okay, in the society. And with that, we may have social stability. So it does have, very important social impact in the society, And when you have big discrepancy between the rich and poor, and the crime rate goes up, suicide goes up, and a lot of those things, will happen. So, but, and I don't know whether I mentioned this or not, but I think this is a good time to mention. So we talk about the opportunity cost. And there's these two things here, actually, they are at the cost of each other. One is efficiency, and the other one is equity, okay? One is at the cost of the other. One is at the cost of the other. So if we want to reach the efficiency, and we may have to sacrifice fairness and equity, okay? But if we want to, and have a lot of equity, fairness, we may have to sacrifice the efficiency, yes. But, as a policymaker, what is the ideal policy? You have to balance. You have to balance. You cannot go either extreme, because you go either extreme, and you're going to see the consequence of that.
And that's why, like, now, especially since, like, political seasons are starting to heat up in the presidential debate, like, that's why you have these people, these people like this people, because, they're the lower class, they want the equity more than the efficiency.
That's right.
And then you've got...
Yeah, so, if you hear, now you can hear their debate,
Right.
They will never talk about pros and cons of the one issue. They, if that's what they advocate, they're just going to stress, the importance of this, and they will never mention the cost of that.
Yes.
So as a voter, and I really think, right now you should think about, the cost, because every policy they mention, they would like to implement, there's a cost for it. You should ask for it. What's the cost of that? As a voter, you should ask for that. What is the cost of that? See whether they can answer, And if they know the answer, they don't want to say it. They just, maybe want to avoid it. But it is important, you want to be an informed voter. A lot of time we vote without sufficient information. We just had this feeling, oh, he sounds really nice. He sounds really impressive. Or she sounds really impressive. I'm gonna vote. But now you learn about this opportunity cost and the cost and benefit. Really, you have to think both. So because this is our country, this is our future, that who is going to be elected. It's probably the most important thing of life. It's going to, determine the quality of life. So be an informed voter. Informed.
Did anybody actually watch the presidential election?
Yeah.
Did you hear, oh my gosh, about the taxes? Like, were you, Trump has some pretty extreme measures that he's gonna take. Discussion?
I didn't hear, what did he say? I didn't hear.
He was just, it puzzled me. Like, his responses to everything were just like...
He was just calling everyone out.
Yeah, like, he was
He's
just
like,
shooting
right.
everything down. He's like, high taxes, high this, like, it was crazy. Right off the bat, as soon as he started speaking, it was like extreme. Discussion question 3. If you found yourself in the 91% federal personal income tax bracket in 1951, how great would have been your incentive to find legal loopholes to reduce your federal tax liability? If you found yourself in the lowest federal personal tax income bracket of, say, 15%, would your incentive to find loopholes to reduce your tax bill be the same?
If I was only bringing home 10% of what I was making, I would be working really, really hard to figure out how to make a little bit less to fall out of that bracket. Whereas if I was not getting taxed really at all, I'd make sure I was making right at the top of the bracket so I could make the most amount without getting taxed as much.
So you're saying that you would probably, even if you were qualified to do a higher paying job, you would downgrade yourself to be in a lower tax bracket?
Because after, say you were in something like a 75% tax bracket and they offered you a raise, if you take the raise, they're going to take 15% more of what you're making, so you most times would walk away with less money overall.
Speaking as somebody who knows somebody who this happened to, he was a lower paid worker and he made X amount of money. Well, they promoted him. And they promoted a couple other guys too, and all the guys wanted to be shifted back down to the job they originally had, because when they got a promotion, they made more money, but they would put them in a higher tax bracket, so therefore they made more money when they were down here than they were when they were up here.
Yeah. Does anybody know why it was so high between like 1951 and 1964? I don't know much about that era.
Yeah, it's probably because of Vietnam.
I mean, because 91%. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what.
The war, you
Yeah.
think?
Post World War II and then Korea and Vietnam. Like that probably all would have factored into it.
Yeah.
And that's
Your turn.
Huh?
Oh, I thought she was about to say something, so I stopped. And that kind of goes along with, like, my uncle, he does this where you can get health care, like, for your children and stuff like that, if you make so much a week, like, less than that amount. So he'll just take, like, 2 or 3 days off and then not show up to work for 2 days and then work, so that way he falls into that category. So that way his kids can have that, which I don't think that's right, but there's ways
Yeah.
to cheat the system, because you won't make as much money that week.
Well, that's in the book as well, like how they reduced the number of hours they worked. I think, would that be considered taking like all the vacation and sick time that you could, or would that be actually not coming to work? Because when it says it reduces it by like 120 hours, what hours are those? Are they sick hours or?
Oh, it should be, all should be included, you know.
Because I think you still get paid for vacation time, so.
When they go from full-time to part-time.
Part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this chapter was really difficult for me to like really understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a situation a little bit different, but in Canada, taxes are really high, and so we actually, part of the reason we moved to the U.S. was because of taxes, because my dad found out that he got a job down here, and it was a 50% pay cut, but because of that 50% pay cut, he was in a, and because it was the U.S., so you have lower taxes down here, he was taking home more money than he had been making in Canada. So because he was in that higher tax bracket, he was paying a lot of taxes in Canada. And so he ended up moving down here, and he was working less and making less, and making, like, he had a lower wage rate, but getting more money.
Yeah, I know a woman in Southport who has a pizza shop. It's called Dry Street. You might have heard of it since you know a lot of people there. She was doing a full restaurant, like had this whole restaurant to herself. She owns it. She did the math, and she would make more money working as a stalker full-time at Lowe's Foods than she would running her business. So the taxes are pretty heavy. I mean,
It's about 50% in Canada. So if you make $100,000, you have to pay $50,000 to the government. It's that much. Yeah.
do you know, what is the tax, income tax? I thought is it 12% right now
Where?
in America?
I mean, I'll tell you, for me, everything included is about 25%.
25.
Everything included about 25%. Okay, so.
Well, how would higher taxes benefit Canada? Like, how do they benefit off of having a 50%?
Well,
Okay,
because
so
they're paying for health care.
exactly.
Oh, yeah, because you
So
can
we
get-
don't have to, they say, so you have to pay, you have your tax that comes out, and then if you're paying for healthcare benefits, you have your healthcare that comes out.
yeah.
Ours is all included in that tax.
So whenever you live in Canada, you can just go to the doctor.
But the doctor, because everyone thinks it's free, this is another cost, and this is a different subject, but because everyone thinks it's free, they go for anything, and so you go and you have to wait. Like, my dad had a lump on his neck that he could have died. Like, they thought it was cancer, but they said, we can't test it, come back in 3 months.
Yeah.
And he could have been dead by then. You know, my grandma needed a heart surgery. sorry, we can't do it. You may be dead, but, you know.
We don't have time, yeah.
So that's what talking about, the efficiency, I mean, equity is as cost of efficiency. You know, yes, you'll have more equity in Canada.
So how that affect actually the immigration or the migration between Canada and the United States? What kind of people tend to move here? What kind of people tend to move Canada?
Rich people move to Canada, don't they?
No, rich
No,
people
people
move
move here.
That's it.
But you hear about a lot of stars like that come from Canada. You know, Drake lived in Canada.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they don't have to pay as much taxes here, so they're free to make more money here and not pay as much.
If you're lower income, it's probably better off to live in Canada.
Yeah, because then you get free
And
stuff.
that's right. If you're elders, probably it's better off to live in Canada.
Well, I've heard a lot of people, like, I have this Hispanic lady that works for my mom, and her husband came here to make money, but then he took it back to Mexico. Why would he do that? Is it better there? Is it worth more?
It's worth more.
Yeah, like, that's what he does. He comes here for 6 months on a work visa and saves, like, as much as he can, and then he takes it back.
Yeah, because when you transfer American currency back to
To
the
pesos.
pesos, that's just like so much money. So.
I should do that when I get over. Yeah, that's a loophole.
So that's why even these two countries, Canada, United States, so close to each other, but employment is so much better. Theory-wise, in the theory, it's so much better here than Canada.
I mean, I know education is one big reason why people migrate, but I've also heard that people migrate for the like jobs and just having better like environment around you. So
Actually, I have heard good things about the Canadian education system.
Me too.
Yes. Actually, I would say Canadian education system is way better.
yeah.
K to 12 is much,
Yes,
much better.
very, very good compared to my experience down here. But cost of living is really high up there because you don't just have income tax, you also have sales tax, and you have state sales tax and federal sales tax. And so there's just a lot of tax on everything. The interesting thing is, like if you go to the grocery store, everything's more expensive except fruit is like really cheap in Canada.
Why is that?
I don't know. I'd like to find out. Maybe there's less tax on it because it's healthy. That would be something Canada would do. But you go there and like,
Well, what about
for
vegetables?
99 cents.
What about vegetables?
I
Is it
think
the same?
I just noticed fruits because I love fruit and fruit is expensive.
Yeah.
So I went to the grocery store up there thinking it would be really, really expensive. I was packing snacks for a trip. We're traveling down here, and so I wanted to buy fruit, and it was like, I can buy this whole store.
I mean, I bought a car recently, and I didn't buy it. It happened to say that I was buying it because the money came out of my banking account, but it was actually my mom, and she bought it for my brother. But when we were sitting there filling out the paperwork, which was like a whole different story, he lives in Tennessee, so he had to buy it under Tennessee taxes, and it was like way higher for him to get Tennessee tags, and I don't know why that is, but the taxes were like $1,000 more for him to purchase the car with a Tennessee registration than a North Carolina registration. So
And
like
even between county, from one county to another county within one state, the tax could be dramatically different.
yeah.
Yeah, like Moore County I live right now is very different from Robeson County. Robeson County charge much higher, property tax on the cars, believe it or not. Moore County actually is much richer, but Robeson County's, and the property tax on the cars is really, really high.
I think Brunswick County actually has like a max they can charge you because my mom does like where she will buy a new car every year, don't ask. And she says that no matter what the car costs, it always hits a point. So I wonder if other places do that where they have a stipulation like we can't charge you more than this. You don't think so?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I think you get like certain things like the immigration, you get certain things, but it's a payoff. Like it's like my mom grew up in Wales and the education there is way better, but the property taxes suck. So, I mean, like, you get everything with, like, a payoff, and so, like, with paying for cars and stuff in one state, you might get this, but imagine going to another state and it being super, like, cheaper, but, you know, there's just certain things.
My grandma's British and she loves England, and the one thing she loves about it is that you can become a doctor and you don't have to pay anything, but there's a lot more taxes, like little stipulations that happen in England that make the living better, even though you could get a doctorate for like zero cost. So I get what you're saying about the whales.
I just saw the question here. So earlier we're talking about Canadian education is better. So Sarah, do you know what's the cause of that? Why Canadians' education, K-12 education is better than here? Think about what we've learned stuff.
The cost of it or why it's better?
Why? What's the cause of, you know, what caused that happen? Why Canadians, you know, K-12 education system is better than here? Everything is related to the market.
Well, they definitely have a higher income tax, so maybe they use some of that for the education.
And that implies
They have more money to pay for better teachers, qualified
Exactly.
teachers.
the middle school teacher, elementary school teacher, high school teacher are paid really, really well. Do you know how much they make?
Oh, I just Googled this.
$90,000. School teachers make $90,000 in Canada.
Okay,
They-
so,
they-
I mean, go
My
to
mom-
Canada.
My mom's an elementary
But you have to pay the
school
taxes.
Yeah.
My mom's an elementary school teacher and she makes like 38.
I know here it's incredibly low.
I'm going for English education, so that's a really sad
But it's like,
So that's, I mean, everything is related to the market,
Mhm.
you know? So the government put a lot of money into that, you know, market. So they get better paid teachers. So a lot of, you know, people who with a lot of, you know, talents, you know, goes into that job.
What
And
is
that's
the
why-
welfare like in
But it's-
Canada?
it's like a payoff, because these countries that like have better education and stuff like that, they have better education and they have free healthcare, but it all comes at a cost. Like there's underlying things that
Well, I mean, like that $90,000 is gonna be slashed, so it's basically like
But
But-
it's still
but-
considered as a good income.
It's not like 90 and 38 are a big difference.
Yes.
Like they're not slashing it enough
Right.
that
It's-
you're
it's
making 38.
significant.
pay
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even with the higher taxes, you're making more.
And the welfare would be considered very good, especially because you're getting free healthcare. So it was what, like we were talking about immigration. That kind of system, it attracts people who have lower income because they're not getting taxed as much and they're getting a lot of free stuff. But then people who are earning high income, it's really, really hard for them. Like upper middle class is really hard because they're paying really high taxes and they're not getting a lot of bang for their buck as far as like health care. They'd rather pay for their own health care and know it's gonna work and it's gonna be there when I need it than pay the government and the government provides them health care that's not that great.
Yeah.
You know?
So who in here is for higher taxes? Just a higher income tax in general. Because I mean, we're talking about how it can relate to a guy of some pros,
but like here, oh, go ahead.
If they increase our taxes here, are they gonna like take away stuff that like other places don't have to pay for? Like, you know, here we have to pay for like health insurance and college and like all this stuff.
hopefully when we get a new president. Like I know that like has anybody researched Obamacare? I don't really like to call it Obamacare because that's not what the name of it is.
Yeah,
You guys knew
everyone
that.
calls it that.
That
but
it's really not. Like I felt like that was a good thing, even though everybody was downplaying it. And like I'm not ready for a new president because I'm like against Obama in any way. I just think that fresh ideas should be recycled, and usually 8 years is a long term. So I would say that I think that a higher tax increase would be okay. I mean, not 50%, but a little bit higher probably would do us some good. But then again, says that it could possibly turn around and we would get nothing out of it. So
It just worries me that like the higher tax rates in other countries are going towards like their education and their health and stuff like that. I feel like since our debt is so high, like a
Yeah.
majority of it would just go to
The
pay
debt.
off other stuff.
That's a con, which I researched that because like if we raise taxes, then the government is definitely going to use it to pay off some of our debt because we're like $1 trillion into debt. But if we didn't have debt, a higher tax might help us out. But the way America
So
is,
it might be a payoff for like a little bit of time until we pay that off.
yeah, like
Yeah.
we would have to struggle before we
For a
would
bit.
see the real benefit.
There's a website you can go on and like it shows you the world debt clock and like how it goes up like every second.
It's terrible. It really is.
Whenever you say raise taxes, are you talking about raising it as a flat rate for everyone, or raising it scaled on how much you make?
I definitely think it should be scaled on how much you make because I
Like
do not make
percentages?
much money and it makes me really sad. Like I was saying before you guys came in here, my paycheck is like supposed to be $500, but then when I get it, it's like $370 and I'm like, why? So I definitely think it should be different, but that's just my point of view. I'm open to everybody.
The whole debt thing is sort of is question number one, and I was thinking about that, like how do we think about where our taxes are going?
Where would the struggle be worse?
It'd just be a period of like it's the struggle.
I don't think we
But
can ever
then
do
after
that.
that, like you have to think of the payoff.
Yeah, and it was basically talking about how if we're not paying taxes now, suppose we eventually do have to pay all of our debt. I don't know if that always ever happens, but suppose we absolutely have to pay all of our debt. It was saying how in the future that means we're gonna have to pay even higher taxes in the future to eventually pay off that debt. So how does that make us think about, would higher taxes now and then, not having to raise them as much later?
Yeah, there's scale.
Even if it's like don't necessarily have to pay it all up. Like what if we get down from $1 trillion to $1 billion?
So we might be a little bit better.
So,
Baby steps.
I've
Yeah,
heard
like-
that the countries we owe don't really want us to pay up like we want to because that's how they have like
Yeah, they
You
got leverage
owe
over us.
me.
Like, you owe us.
so
Let me find the clock.
she wants to find it.
Oh, and we've been talking about how higher like class citizens have to pay more. Like we've sometimes been talking about like the brackets. Whereas I don't know if you guys know, but like if you are on welfare, like food stamps, things like that, government housing, you aren't taxed on those. Like food stamps aren't taxed. So
Yeah,
like
I know.
my family, like food stamps, you don't have to pay sales tax. You
Yeah.
don't have to pay tax on that money.
Working in
you're
a grocery
getting.
store
Yeah.
taught me that.
Yeah, so it's not affecting them as much if you raise it because they aren't having to pay as much anyways. So
But that's more incentive to not get off welfare.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Food
Yeah.
stamps, yeah.
She's gonna find the clock.
That clock, like
It's
it's kind of
it's really scary.
the
The world clock.
because we're the ones who are gonna have to pay for it.
The world clock. There is a clock that shows how far into debt we are going.
You want to show that use this? Use
Yeah.
this. Use this.
That's like just
Yeah, locked in.
And then
Makes
you
my
have like
blood
pressure
pressure
rise. 'Cause
I'm like,
Honey.
oh my god, I'm not gonna have Social Security.
Am I gonna
What
be
is
able to retire?
Social Security. It's like
I'm messing with you.
I'm like, do you really not know that's where we're going?
Well, you know they say that by the time we reach Social Security age, it's gonna be all gone.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. I was
Like,
saying,
what
what
is
is this?
Like, don't get your hopes up for that. 'Cause
Well, I fear for like my kids and generations below because I would hate for them to have like terrible lifestyles because of the debt America has incurred.
Just kind of stupid.
you're right.
I have a question. Does the government only make money from taxes, or don't they also get money from like other sources? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do they? Do you know? No.
Yeah, they get money from tariffs, from.
Well,
that's a tax anyways. It's a tax. Basically, it's a lot of different taxes.
Okay, you guys.
Okay, I didn't know.
This
that.
computer is going really slow, but we have it up. And like, I don't know. Here.
How about
We cannot see it.
Well, it's hard for me to read because it goes up every second.
Just wait. Yeah.
just wait.
Just wait. Just take a
It'll
minute.
come.
We've asked all of the questions.
Number 2.
Why don't we take a vote?
Why don't we take a vote on what?
Raising or lowering?
I asked,
We
and no one
tried.
wanted to say. Because they're so, like, you can't decide against either one, it's hard.
Which one? Oh. Oh. I'm just talking about the 18 trillion.
Oh my goodness.
The 18 trillion.
See, like, get it down to like
Yeah. I mean, that's still a lot of money. The national debt per household is $146,000. But that's like a house loan and stuff like that.
The student loan debt really.
Yeah, that's actually quite low. I didn't think it would be.
That's solid. But that's like, I mean, it depends on your situation.
Yeah.
Because like the way my mom thinks, like my mom, God bless her heart,
Yeah,
she won't let me
second
pay
one's
for college
Or down the
because
first one, yeah.
she'd just been like, if she hadn't gotten into the army, she would have just finished
Finished.
paying her debt. So like,
Well, my mom buys a new car every year. So she's not really in.
It's hard to see it.
U.S. national debt is 18 trillion.
It's trying.
And like you can go back
Oh
and
my
use the
goodness.
time machine thing and go back to like 1980 and that would be
Oh,
debt like everything.
and see like what it was then.
Yeah, because it's only 911 billion.
Wow.
What it would be then, though. That's right,
Yeah.
right?
In
Yeah.
1980.
It's
The
just
debt
so
for
many
citizen was only
commas.
just over
So
4,000.
that, can we go into the future and
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
Let's go to 2040. 2040.
2018.
I don't think you can.
2018.
You can't type in one, I don't think.
Oh,
It has like
20,
preset.
2019 is a
2019. This
On
is
this
it.
day in 2019 at the current rates.
Oh no.
That's
There's another comma added.
By the time we're 40, it's gonna be like 40 billion.
Just stop keeping track. Like,
Those
Or trillion,
those are
yeah.
trillions.
Yeah, these are
Yeah, those are trillions.
Wow.
That hurts.
I'm getting all
Look at
stressed
the
out.
last
Personal
minute
debt.
question.
Like, how can I pay for this?
We've went through our whole list that we had, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I tried the best I could to understand.
I'm like thinking about the money that I already don't have.
It'll be okay.
So, I mean, you saying that the average household that is what?
146,000, but household debt includes like mortgage, because you have to get a loan on your house.
And
So-
what's the proportion for the student loan in that?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
That's just like.
Oh, student loan and
The
total.
student loan, we didn't even look at, we were just thinking about the big picture, we
The
didn't.
total student loan debt is 1.2 trillion.
But how about per household?
Yeah, but
Do you know how bad the taxes are on student loans? I just wanna let those people that got
That's
big
the thing,
refunds.
$1 trillion for student loan debt.
Okay, so
No,
what is
average hits 30,000.
Yeah,
Average.
33,000. See, this one says average
33,000
for average student
like
debt
so
for
much.
2014 graduate,
for each student.
for each student.
So imagine like
You know,
having
that's
debt and
what
then,
I actually observed the last 15 years of in this country is, borrowing. It is very, very crucial decision in your lifetime. But a lot of us do not make that decision with sufficient information. You do not that calculate your cost and the benefit before you borrowing, and that's the key. And if you are borrowing right now, and I want you to calculate how much you're going to make in the future, and with this degree, and then calculate how many years it's going to take you to pay it off. You should know about that right now.
My brother owes $35,000 in student loans, and whenever he pays them off, it will amount to $66,000 with interest. So he's gonna be probably around 40 to 45 years old before he will ever be able to.
Basically, I have a couple friends who majored in English, PhD degree in English, okay? And they are in their 50s. and they are probably going to pay the student loan for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, really think about it. You know, if you're going to